uses to travel the world, and it's powered by these power moons, so you keep needing additional thresholds of them to get onto the next kingdom. And just to show off a little bit of the new moves, obviously there's the hat throw. You can make it stay in place, which is sometimes valuable. It can grab things for you. There's two kinds of coins, which we'll talk about it a little later on.
Actually, there in that little dialogue box, we saw Cappy.
Oh, yeah. Cappy is both the red hat that he's wearing and also in his native form, he's a white top hat. And so one other move that's pretty cool is this circular throw. Knocks away everything. But let's get down into the city. And as you saw in the trailer, so there's the capture mechanic lets you take over things. It also lets you do fairly exotic things like turn into electricity to travel through wires. So how did the capture mechanic come about?
キャプチャーという仕様を作ったきっかけは何かありましたでしょうか。
そうですね。今作はものすごくいろんな試作っていうものをしてから作っています。
So when we were making this game, what we started out doing was making just a huge amount of different gameplay prototypes.
このキャプチャーというアクションもそのうちの一つです。
And this capture action was just one of those prototypes.
みんなでアイデアを出し合った中に出てきたんですけども、それをそうですね、2、3日ぐらいで作って遊んでみたらものすごく面白かったので、すぐゲームの中心に入れようと決めました。
So, it was just one of the ideas that came up, but we worked on it for 2 or 3 days, and it just instantly turned into something that was really fun, and we decided, well, okay, this should just be the center of this game.
I love how much it encourages that exploration and experimentation that I think the Mario games along these lines are so known for when you think about Super Mario 64, Super Mario Sunshine. Here we've got so much stuff that just looks interesting, and you're wondering, okay, what will happen if I throw my cap at it? You never really know what's going to happen, so you want to try everything just to see.
何でも試してみたくなる仕様ですね。どういう要素があるのか。
そうですね。いろんなものに帽子を投げたり、試してもらえたらなと思ってます。
Yeah, I definitely hope when people, while they're playing this game, they just throw their hat at everything and try all sorts of different things.
Whoops, that was a mistake. Right now, normally, if you were following the story path of the game, you'd be talking to Mayor Pauline, who wants you to recruit musicians. There's one there. But we're going to ignore that right now because there's lots and lots of things to do beyond following the main story of the game. Like possess rockets and turn into rockets with mustaches.
And why wouldn't you do that if you could? Actually, that's an interesting note there. So you mentioned Mayor Pauline, and I think our sharp-eyed viewers will have noticed that some of the street signs are references to some Donkey Kong characters. We've got some interesting red girders going on here. I wonder, Kozumi-san and Monokura-san, if you can tell us a little bit more about this city. It's got some interesting backstory.
やっぱりポリン市長がいて、ニュードンクシティという名前がついてると、だからもっと何かこの都市について説明していただけますか。
そうですね。名前もそうですし、ポリンってドンキーコングのキャラクターで何かのゲームに関係がありそうですけど、今日はちょっと詳しく言えないんですけど。
So certainly you can tell that Pauline is from Donkey Kong, and the name New Donk City probably leads you to a couple of hints, but we can't get into too much of it today.
And I like the shirt you're wearing, by the way.
That is a snazzy
Good choice
shirt.
today.
お楽しみに。
Please look forward to hearing more about that.
I gotta take the long way.
Oh, good luck. And this is interesting here where we see, really throughout New Donk City, and I think throughout the world, we've got these really fun playground elements where you're bouncing on things, you're jumping on things, you're swinging. Can you tell our viewers a little bit more about how you came up with that kind of play mechanic in the game?
ぶら下がったりして、飛び跳ねたりして、いろんな、環境のものに反応させられるんですけど、どういうふうにそういう遊び場っぽい雰囲気を出せるように考え方ありますか。
はい。まずその試作っていうのでものすごくいっぱい遊びを作っています。それを配置してステージっていうものを作ります。まず。
So, going back to that prototyping process I was talking about before, we obviously create lots and lots of different ones, lots of different game ideas. And then next what we think about is where to place them within the stage.
そこにそのアートであるとか具体的なものを載せて遊んでみます。
So, we put it in the stage, we combine it with different art assets, kind of real things to see what it might actually look like or work in game, and then try playing it.
そうするともっとこうしたいとかいろんな意見が出てくるので、それをさらにそこに上乗せして作っています。
And then, you know, obviously out of that, like different things come up like, oh, maybe we could do this a little bit differently. Maybe this could actually work like this instead. And then we kind of add that to it, and the process just continues from there.
なので先ほどちょっと出たタクシーなんかをジャンプさせるのもスーパーマリオサンシャインでもちょっと似たような仕様があったので、そういうところからちょっとヒントを得ています。
And so, you know, you saw before, you know, we were able to jump on top of the taxi, and that's something that was sort of in Super Mario Sunshine at times. So in that way, we're also getting hints from past games.
Can I quickly interject that so as I mentioned, the goal right now is to recruit these musicians. When I was first playing this game for a feedback report for the development team, I could not figure out how to get to this guy on the top of this building. You can just barely see him. He's a speck right now in that triangular building. And the way I eventually found to do it was to take a really long fall.
I did that too.
And that worked.
Oh, I feel bad
And
for his knees.
a bit to my surprise. And I wanted to know, you know, when you saw that report from me, you know, was that a problem to be solved? Was that a cool thing? What was that?
このマリオはNCR の報告書を書いていたときに、こういうふうにトランペットのバンドラムに到着できますよと書いてましたが、それを見てちょっと困っていたんでしょうか。
はい、それは読んだんですけれども、今日ここでプレイするとは思わなかったです。
Yeah, I did read that. I didn't know you were going to be playing that right now.
Troublemaker.
でもこう、
Well, I also know the real way. Or another way.
まあ本当のやり方も分かってます。
でも自分でこういろんなプレイの仕方を探してもらえたらと思うんですけども、それもスーパーマリオ64やスーパーマリオサンシャインから続くものだと思います。
But you know, you found your own way to play it, and like you know, letting users play around with the game and find their own ways of doing things. That's something that goes way back in 3D Mario, in Super Mario 64 and Super Mario Sunshine as well.
So this is actually one of the two kingdoms that's going to be playable on the show floor. The show floor, of course, isn't open yet, so we don't have folks playing the game at this moment, but I'm really looking forward to talking to folks after they've played it, because I think there's so many different ways to problem solve and find the moons in these kingdoms. I'm not even sure if folks will find everything over the course of the show, but it's going to be interesting to find out how different people approached completing some of these objectives.
But the game encourages so much experimentation because you aren't kicked out of the level every time you find a moon. There is no reason not to investigate every little thing you can see that might be interesting. There's no time limit. There's no disincentive. Just lots and lots of cool stuff. Whoa! Okay.
Yeah, that is a very interesting change that adds, I think, to the immersion in the kingdoms. When you think about Super Mario 64, Super Mario Sunshine, whenever you got your, whatever the collectible objective was, depending on the game you were playing, you'd get bumped out of the area and you'd have to come back in. But here, since you're not going to get booted out of the kingdom when you collect a power moon, there's a lot of encouragement to just go check out that weird thing you saw on the horizon, because you can still continue with whatever your primary objective is. Oh no! But then, keep on tracking and finding moons.
Another reason to explore everything is that there's very little punishment for dying. I just lost 10 coins, and there's lots. So, and I get to try again right away.
ミスすると10コインが取られますね。
Oh, look at that.
It's also worth mentioning that the bullet bills here are coming out with visors on, so they cannot be captured until you knock their hats off, because an enemy with a hat is the scariest thing in this game.
Fashion is very important in this game. You got to be conscious of your headwear. Oh, careful.
Ah. Well, apparently this is not my day for this challenge.
That's right. Third time's a charm, right?
Yeah. And if at first you don't succeed, give up on the third attempt.
I'm just looking at the space where we saw other sections of Donk City, and looking here, I'm just so impressed with the texture work that's been done. And I feel like every time I see a new build of this game, more and more of these textures are just jumping out at me. It's really fun to see in person.
It is a gorgeous game, and we have some other segments later on in the stream that are going to highlight some especially pretty areas.
Oh, you got this.
Yeah.
And well, I'm keeping my fingers and toes crossed. Yes.
Thank you.
One thing that we haven't mentioned yet that we probably should talk a little bit about is the fact that you're playing with Joy-Con with the wrist straps attached.
Yes.
And that's a really fantastic way to play this game. It, of course, supports Pro Controller and other controller options, but you can do so much with the motion controls, and throwing Cappy feels very intuitive.
Yeah. I'm going to switch to a different section of the game where I show the sand world, which is also playable on the show floor. So give me just a moment.